Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to compare the Samsung Galaxy Tab S3 to the iPad Pro Generation 2 from the perspective of an artist. Now this video may get a bit long. If you want to save some time, you can check out my text review. The link is in the video description below. So in this video, I will talk about the specs, I will talk about the design of the styluses, the drawing experience, the screen. So let's start with the specs and the design of the tablets. The iPad Pro is now available in two sizes, 10.5 inches and 12.9 inches. The one that I have here is 12.9 inch. The Samsung Tab S3, this is 9.7 inches. Now the working area of this 12.9 inch screen, it's almost 2 times that of this screen. So what that means is you can have the user interface show up and have lots of working area to draw on. This is Medibank Paint Pro. I'm going to open up Medibank Paint Pro on the Android as well. And let me turn on the layers palette. Same thing here. So even with the color palette on the side here, the brush palette and the layers palette, there is still a good amount of space left to draw on. Now if you turn this off and if you turn this off, there's even more space to draw on. So this is a really generous size to draw on. It's very comfortable to draw on such a large screen because you can put your hand here and you can draw very comfortably. And also because the screen is larger, when you put your hand here, it doesn't cover much of the working area. However, on the Android tablet, when you put your hand here, it actually covers a portion of the screen. So that's something to take note of. So drawing on the 9.7 inch, it's like drawing on an A5 sheet of paper. So this is an A5 sketchbook. It's about the same size as the Samsung tablet. This is almost like drawing on an A4 sheet of paper. What about the 10.5 inch screen? Well, that screen is not just larger compared to this 9.7, it also has more resolution. So after taking into account the space that's used up by the user interface, there is still going to be more working area on the screen compared to this. Both screens are very reflective. I actually bought a matte screen protector to paste over this screen so that I can have a nicer texture to work with the Apple Pencil. So now it feels much nicer to draw on the screen. And also this matte screen protector, it doesn't attract a lot of fingerprints. However, the screen protector, it does affect the image quality. So the image is not as sharp compared to the screen without the screen protector. With the Samsung S Pen, there are actually two types of tips provided, including the tip that's inside the S Pen. There are 2 gray tips and 4 white ones. The white one is a bit softer, has more friction on the glass screen. The gray ones, they are actually hard tips. When it comes to drawing on the Tab S3, I prefer to use the softer tip because there is slightly more friction. It feels slightly better, but the feeling of drawing on glass, it's still going to be there if you do not have a matte screen protector. Now this is an AMOLED screen, so the colors are exceptionally vibrant. The darks are really very dark, almost close to the black color of the bezel. The white is very white. However, I do feel that there is some color shifting that is noticeable when you tilt the tablet around. So when I tilt the tablet slightly at an angle, I can see the white turning to slight blue. So that's AMOLED screen. With the LCD screen, the viewing angles, they are excellent. The colors may not be as vibrant compared to AMOLED screen. However, I do feel that the colors on the LCD screen, they appear to look more natural to me. There are no ways to color calibrate the screens, so you have to rely on the system settings to change the color settings. On the Samsung Galaxy Tab S3, the default mode, which produces very vibrant colors, I think that is the best mode because all the other settings, the colors are quite dead. With the iPad Pro, you have the option to turn on this setting called True Tone, which will take in the ambient lighting and adjust the white on the screen to make it appear more natural, closer to paper white. If you turn it off, then the screen will appear to be a bit cooler in terms of color temperature. If you leave True Tone turned on, it's slightly warmer. As an IPS panel, there is some sort of IPS glow, so if you are going to watch movies at night with no lights on, the black areas, they are going to glow slightly. It's not going to be as dark as the bezel behind. On the AMOLED screen, the black is going to be the same shade of black as this. That's quite impressive, but when it comes to using the screen, I only use the screen during normal lighting conditions like this. I prefer the LCD screens for the natural, the more believable color. The last thing I want to talk about that relates to the screen is the refresh rate. So with the new iPad Pro, the screen refresh rate is 120 frames per second. The animation effects is going to be very smooth. As I draw this stroke here, there is still a slight gap before the stroke catches up with the tip, but the lag or latency is really not an issue. The animation effect of the stroke appearing, it's very smooth. Drawing experience is very good. Now let's compare that to the Samsung Tab S3. This, by the way, is the Samsung Fan Go. Alright, I can feel that there is slightly more lag with this tablet, but it's really not that big of a deal. There is also this slight gap before the stroke can catch up with the tip of the pen. And now I'm using Procreate. In the latest update, it says that the app has been updated to take advantage of the 120 frames per second. So as I'm drawing this, I can definitely feel that this is quite smooth. If I have to nitpick, I would say that there is still this slight gap before the stroke can catch up with the tip of the stylus. But again, that's a non-issue. Now on the Android, let's open up Artflow. Artflow is quite similar to Procreate with some differences. Now with Artflow, the gap between the stroke and the pen tip, it's larger. I also feel that the animation effects here, it's definitely not as smooth compared to the iPad Pro. For lag or latency issues, it really depends a lot on the app that you use. On the iPad Pro, generally speaking, most apps, they are quite smooth. When it comes to lag, maybe perhaps there is a tiny gap before the stroke will catch up with the tip, but that is the same with the Samsung Tab S3. This is Medibank Paint Pro that I'm using. This is actually very smooth. Now if I were to compare this to the iPad Pro, I would say that there is almost no difference when it comes to the responsiveness of this app. However, this only applies to Medibank Paint Pro. Now I'm going to switch to a different app. I'm going to be using Wacom Bamboo Paper. As I'm using the Wacom Bamboo Paper, I can definitely see the difference in terms of responsiveness. Now the speed of the strokes appearing, it's still quite fast. However, the strokes, I can see some stutter that wasn't there when I was using Medibank Paint Pro. This is Art Rage. This is also quite responsive. I do not see any of the stutter that I noticed with Wacom Bamboo Paper. Pressure sensitivity works really well. I just have to apply the least amount of pressure on the screen and I can get a very thin line. Now when I compare this to the Microsoft Surface Pro 4 pen, this uses less pressure to get a stroke compared to the Surface Pro 4 pen. I'm not too sure about the new Surface Pro, but I'm going to test that if I do get a review unit. But the pressure here with the Samsung S Pen, it works really well. This is Adobe Sketch, and it's quite enjoyable to draw on this as well. It's quite responsive. So whether or not there is lag, it really depends on the apps that you use. So even though the Samsung Tab S3, this is supposed to have lower refresh rate compared to the iPad Pro, but for most of the drawing apps that I have used and tested, they still perform rather well. Palm rejection works almost flawlessly on the Samsung and Apple tablets. Let me demonstrate that. There are no stray strokes at all, so this is very good, A+ for me. Pressure sensitivity works exceptionally well with these two styluses, but the Apple Pencil has the added advantage of having tilt sensitivity. One advantage the Samsung S Pen has over the Apple Pencil is this does not require battery, so this is always on and this is always paired to the tablet. With the Apple Pencil, it needs to be connected via Bluetooth to the tablet. If you switch off the Bluetooth on the iPad Pro, then you have to pair it again. Pairing is done by putting this into the port of the iPad. It pairs within seconds, it's very fast, but when you switch off the Bluetooth, you need to pair it. Usually for me, I do not ever switch off the Bluetooth, so it's not an issue. But this is powered by battery, so it will run out of battery eventually. Charging is quite fast. Within 15 minutes, you can get up to 50% charge, and you can use that for a few hours, so not too big of a deal. Let's talk about battery life. On the iPad Pro, the battery can last a solid 9 hours. That's very impressive. And since I do not work on the iPad for 9 hours non-stop, this can easily last the whole day. On the Samsung Galaxy Tab S3, the battery life is slightly shorter at around 7 to 8 hours, but the battery life overall is still quite good. This can last me the whole day as well. There is fast charging on this tablet, so it can charge up quite fast. Battery life can go up quite fast, but on this tablet, if you charge it using the default charger that's provided, it's going to charge this tablet rather slowly. So when it comes to charging, this is better. When it comes to battery life, this is better than this. But overall, the battery life for both this tablet, they are quite good. The base model of the iPad Pro comes with 64 gigs of storage, which I feel is quite sufficient. If you need more storage, like for example, if you need to put a lot of reference photos, if you want to download a lot of videos, then it might be better to upgrade to the next tier, which is 256 gigs. Or if you want even more storage, then you can go up to 512 gigs of storage. Now on the Samsung Tab S3, the storage is 32 gigs, but it comes with an expandable micro SD card slot. So you can actually just purchase an external micro SD card and expand your storage that way, which I personally feel it's more economical. It will save you more money, and in the future when you decide to sell this tablet, you can actually retain that micro SD card for other users or use it in your next tablet. Alright, let's talk about pricing. These are the current pricings for various iPad Pros that are available. These two are refurbished, these two are the second generation, this is the Samsung Tab S3. For the price of the iPad Pros, I've included the price of the Apple Pencil because to me, the main reason to get the iPad Pro is to use it with the Apple Pencil. You can only use the Apple Pencil on the iPad Pro. So for the refurbished 9.7-inch iPad Pro, which has 32 gigs of storage, it's $569 US. That is actually quite close to the Tab S3, which is $599. At this pricing, I would recommend going with the refurbished 9.7 inch because the drawing experience on the iPad Pro it's better compared to the Tab S3 in my personal opinion. And if you want a larger refurbished iPad Pro, the price jumps up to $689, which is about $90 more than the Tab S3. And because this has a larger screen, I feel that this is actually quite a good deal for the money as well. The larger screen really makes a more satisfying drawing experience. Now for the new iPad Pros, they are definitely more pricey. So this 10.5 inch, which has 64 gigs of storage, it's now $749. So it's about $150 more than the Tab S3. And the 12.9 inch is even more expensive at $900. The new iPad Pros are definitely more expensive, but I feel that they are still worth the money. To conclude, I would like to say that I prefer to draw on the iPad Pro because of the Apple Pencil. However, if you go with the Samsung Tab S3, I feel that you are not missing out too much because the drawing experience on the Tab S3 is still quite pleasant. Even though the new iPad Pro has 120 frames per second for the screen, the Samsung Tab S3 is not too bad either. The strokes, it still appears quite smooth, but that depends on the app that you are using. The main difference when it comes to drawing will be this Apple Pencil, it has tilt. And for the Samsung Tab S3, when drawing, the strokes they appear smoothly, but the gap between the stroke catching up with the tip is slightly larger compared to the iPad Pro. But is that a big issue? To me, I really do not feel that it's too big of a difference. So that's all for this comparison. I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below and let me know which tablet you bought eventually for drawing. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!